what to do.
Walk on water doesn't mean you can.
Right, everybody, welcome to a very special episode of the Mabcast, where I'm joined with Nick as usual, and we've got a very special guest.
How's it going?
Hi.
So if you want to introduce yourself there then, just...
Hi, I'm Keelan, or CBAKL as my music name, and I'm a producer from Portrush in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, so you're someone I was made aware of fairly recently by Jack Bashful. He sort of sent me a message, and you've got some of the biggest numbers out of any artists I know from Northern Ireland in this sort of type of music, but I hadn't heard of you. Do you think that you've got more of like sort of an online presence than you do sort of in a local scene, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think especially because I go to university in Leicester in England, so I'm not here very often. So in terms of like live shows over here, I'm not available to sort of put my name out there in that sense. But yeah, even in terms of like, I suppose the whole lo-fi scene and Spotify and all that is very online based, as opposed to, there's a lot of people who aren't necessarily, like, you wouldn't know where they're from. Yeah. But they're, yeah, like quite popular on things like Spotify and SoundCloud.
I guess because that sort of scene only really exists online. I mean, there's not really a spot you can go to on a Friday night for like a lo-fi hip hop night. You know what I mean? But I think it's cool. And you're from Portrush, and you know I don't really know many artists from up in that part. What sort of got you into hip hop specifically, but music in general?
I've always been raised on good music because my mum and dad are both quite young, so my dad's been really into like house music forever, so I was sort of like brought up listening to that, a lot of hip hop as well, and yeah, sort of just brought up on good music and always loved it, wanted to get involved, and then when I was about 14 I started making beats, and then just sort of went from there, I suppose. And
did you sort of take what I would say is the traditional route now of, you know, torrenting, like FL Studios? I mean, yeah. When I was talking to Jar Jar one time, he was saying he got it from Extravision. I was like, wow, you can get it from Extravision? He was like, nah, that's just my code word for saying torrenting. You know, it's like, I think that's the most common way, in recent years anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I remember, it must have been about 4 or 5 years ago, torrenting it. I'm not really using it too much in the first few months, and then sort of going from there. And then as I've started to use it more, I actually bought it recently, so not looking to get sued.
Yeah.
And like, when you first picked it up, were you already like playing instruments in the background, or was it just something, look, I want to make beats, I'm going to download FL Studio and see what I can do? Just sort of like, how'd that process?
Yeah, more of that. Like, I can play, well, probably not anymore, but the boron, I don't know. I used to play the boron whenever I was quite young in school. And apart from that, I don't think I never really played any instruments. I'm starting to sort of branch out and learn more things, like starting to learn the piano, and I have an electric drum kit and things like that to sort of not move my sound away, but sort of like diversify it so that I can like make different sounds.
Like, that was one thing when, like, I played piano and stuff, and I always wanted to get into beat making and try it out like that, but I never really had the drive for it, so to speak. Like, I just didn't know what I was doing most of the time. But it's good that, like, you know, you've kind of done the opposite, and now you want to get involved in like actually like learning proper like instruments as well, just to up your game, really, more than anything.
Like pretty much all of my music is based around sampling. Like, it's a huge element of the music I make, but there is something so good about making a song completely yourself. Like, I don't have an issue, obviously, with sampling, but yeah, something about just making a song from scratch and it's just completely your own. I don't know, I think there's something quite cool about that.
Yeah, something super organic almost about it. And
yeah.
It's interesting because I think some people almost look down upon sampling. It's strange to me, though, because it's such like a crutch of hip-hop music. You know, it's been there since the start, really. And you said lo-fi hip-hop sound. How did you even come across that, and what sort of enticed you about that?
Yeah, I think just everything nowadays in that instrumental hip-hop sense, it's just like, oh, that's lo-fi. Like, I even see like anyone you can think of, like, oh, Madlib, the lo-fi producer. Like, no.
It's too much of like an umbrella term that covers too much, but it need to be a bit more specific sometimes.
Exactly. But yeah, I started out making like just boom bap because, like, as I said, I've always loved hip-hop, but whenever Pro Era originally was what, like, listening to Capital Steez is what made me like just sit down and start making music. And yeah, started out with that kind of like Brooklyn like boom bap kind of sound, and then just moved into, whenever I started sampling more like melodic things, I think that route just, it sort of like came naturally.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, generally I don't think anybody will find one thing and just stick rigidly to it, but it's like when you start to maybe just peter into different areas and different lines, and you sound just diversifies, because you can tell obviously you've got that lo-fi influence, but I can definitely hear, you know, the soul chops and stuff you would use. Like, you've obviously listened to some maybe older hip-hop from like the 70s and 80s that, you know, very much uses that sort of thing, and it's those sort of cross-pollinations of different interests really come through in your music, I would say.
Yeah, I think a lot of it as well is the stuff that I sample. Like, a lot of it I genuinely enjoy listening to it, so it's not, oh fuck, here I have to sit and listen to loads of music and try and find a sample. It's like, I really enjoy listening to soul music and things like that, so it's very easy to like keep that essence.
Yeah, you're not just like digging like for, I mean, you obviously look for stuff, but you're not just digging for the purpose of finding a sample. You often are like listening to things, and you know, it just comes to you. Yeah,
like on the train actually to come up here, I was trying to find a sample because I was making music, and like 20 minutes had passed and I'd realised I'd just been listening to all the music. Like I forgot that I was like trying to find a sample.
That's class. And like in terms of like the name, where did that come from? It's an interesting one because I didn't know how to even pronounce it the first time I seen it.
Yeah, I get that question all the time, like how to pronounce it. Like I pronounce it CBAKL, but like CBAKL. Like there's loads of different pronunciations.
Because I always had it as CBAKL, but then we had Lacuna on earlier, who was pronouncing it the other way you pronounced it, CBAKL or whichever way that was. But yeah, if you want to clear the air, what's the way you have it like ideally in your head?
Yeah, CBAKL is the way I say it, but even like my name, Keelan, like whenever I'm at uni, people don't know how to say it, so I kind of just got used to people like their own pronunciations of things, so I don't really mind. But yeah, like whenever people ask the origin story of it, I wish I had like it came to me in a dream. Do you know what I mean? But it's literally just like, I've always used it. Like, do you know Habbo Hotel? That's like the first time I can remember properly using it, and that was, I don't know, like any time I've ever needed like a username for something, I've just always used it. Yeah, and then whenever I first started making music and needed a name, I just thought that was a good way to go, and I didn't really want to use my, like, if I started now and was the way I was now, I think I'd just use Keelan as my name, but back then I wanted like a sort of a name that wasn't my own, I suppose.
Yeah, that's cool, and I think it stands out pretty well, you know, it's something memorable as well, I think, for sure. And you said sort of like, did you sort of exist on SoundCloud primarily first? Is that where you were putting most of your output, or where were you putting your stuff?
Yeah, SoundCloud, it was like, I just sort of like just uploaded things as I made them, and then I don't know, like the first year or so didn't really do much with it, and then sort of started to like network with people and go from there, and then build a bit of a following. And then I think it was September 2017 was the first time I put stuff out on like Spotify and Tidal, like Apple Music and all that. So yeah, basically like SoundCloud's where I started.
And where did you sort of have your first, I don't know, like hit, you know, per se, in terms of where did that come from? Because, you know, you've got some big numbers up there, and was that very organic, or did it come out of nowhere, or?
Yeah, it depends. Like on SoundCloud, I don't know if you're familiar with Entourage. He's a producer from Algeria, I think. But like he's huge in like the SoundCloud like lo-fi scene, and me and him had been speaking, so we made some music together, and that, I think it's like by far, it's like got like 40,000 plays on SoundCloud. So it's like, in terms of SoundCloud success, that's probably the best one. And I always feel stuff like SoundCloud, there's more, I don't know, like it's more organic, as you said. So it's like, I don't know, I nearly feel more proud whenever I get plays on SoundCloud, because on Spotify it's like, it is great and getting put in a playlist, but you kind of feel like on SoundCloud people have like actively went out to find your music,
rather than your music just coming up in a playlist on Spotify. Yeah, I feel that. And you've got quite a big discography. I was going through, and you've got a lot of singles, a couple of projects right there.
I have quite a few as well under like the CBAKL name from like SoundCloud days that are on like other channels that I've uploaded. But in terms of like proper ones, I have like that Summer Days EP, which was the first one that came out in 2017, and then like the 3 or 4 other EPs, and then an album, the I Laughed, You Cried, We Swapped one.
Yeah, so I was actually listening to that yesterday, and I really thought that the features were really picked impeccably. Like, you don't use anyone else as a crutch to, you know, lean on throughout, because obviously a lot of it is instrumental stuff that you're doing. And it was Black Society you had on it, and
After Death Society.
After Death Society, sorry, yeah. And you know, the features all really fit really well. How do you go about doing that? Because I'm assuming most of this is just online based. It's not people you're met in person.
After Death Society, and another feature on that, Twan the Dawn, who's in After Death Society. That's a collective that I'm in from Miami. Okay. That I met Twan on SoundCloud like years ago, and then we just became really good friends. And I think it was about 2-3 years ago they asked if I wanted to become part of the collective, and yeah, they make like great music. So it was sort of like everyone on that is somebody that I genuinely like speak to. It wasn't just, oh, can we work on some music together? It was like I have a relationship with them and wanted to make some good music, kind of, and like sort of showcase them.
Yeah, and in terms of reaching out to other artists, have you found that easy enough? Is there anyone that you've reached out to and been almost surprised that they wanted to work with you? Because I feel like you sort of have that legitimacy now with the numbers that you've got, that you can reach out to people, or the people look at your profile and go, wait a second, like I'm gonna check this guy even if I'm not aware who he is.
Yeah, there's a few people like you know, Brockhampton, Merlyn from Brockhampton. We worked on 1 or 2 tracks together that have never surfaced, unfortunately, because
That's
they came. Yeah, I know, it was pretty cool, but like, yeah, I feel like a lot of the time if you have the numbers and make good music and people are like open to it, they will want to work. So it's sort of beneficial for both people in that sense as well.
And what sort of time frame is this? Was this recently, or was this sort of like all American trash sort of days?
Yeah, it would have been. It could have even been afterwards. It was like literally just before they became like massive.
If that had got out there like just as they sort of blew up, that would have been insane.
Yeah, because I remember, I think I just tweeted each of them being like, I never normally do that, but I really enjoy all of their music. So I just tweeted each of them like, let's make music. And he followed me back and was like, oh, I listened to your stuff. And yeah, it was years ago, so like nothing came of it, unfortunately, but it was still quite cool.
And I guess just to have that recognition from your peers is good. But in the grander scheme of things, like, what are some of your goals? Because I think you've already got that online recognition. What going forward, is it maybe shows or what is it?
Yeah, it's more, as you say, like recognition, but I suppose like Irish recognition, I suppose, because like it's cool being part of a scene in England, and as I said, like on Spotify and things, but there's just something so nice about being like respected, I think, for what you do like in your community. So yeah, that's probably one of my main goals.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting because the scene is quite primitive here, and there's, you know, it's starting to bubble up and there's more going on, but there is something really good to be said about being well respected from where you're from and almost being regarded as, forefathers, a bit of a grandiose word to use, but you know what I mean, in terms of like there's not many people here that are making that sort of music, that are doing numbers and stuff. So being sort of the go-to guy, I guess, of like producers in Northern Ireland, there's a couple of really good ones. There's another guy, Brian from Belfast, that's on Soft Boys. Another guy, Mateo, in Belfast, and you know, those are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head, other than yourself. So sort of being in that bracket in a couple of years, hopefully that's where people look to, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's one of the things, especially I suppose doing live shows back here would probably be a good way of doing that as well. And also, do you know Jack Bashful? He makes really good beats as well. I don't know if you ever listened to him.
Yeah, I seen he was at that like beat battle competition in January. Yeah, I've listened to a couple of things. He sent me through some stuff. He's a good producer. Like, I was surprised because I only sort of knew him as a rapper prior to that.
Yeah, I was the exact same. But he submitted stuff for that Class Craic beat tape that we're working on, and I was really surprised with how
standard of it. I mean, you mentioned Class Craic Records there. I mean, just fill us in a bit on that, because there's a lot of people that wouldn't maybe be aware of that.
It's basically just a collective that I started quite recently, to be fair, but it's been like in the works for quite a while. Like I put out a submission application, I don't know, like maybe a year and a half ago, and then it got about 100 submissions, and me and my friend Frank went through and sort of just whittled it down to like a short list, and it happened to coincide with like a lot of the artists were Irish artists, which is something I like. There were a lot of good artists from America and other places, but I thought like it's better to I don't know, like start a scene here for what I want to do, and then also there's people from Australia and England as well, but sort of the main,
The core, almost.
yeah, the core of it be based in Ireland.
That's really cool, because I think that you didn't go in. Did you go in with the premise that it was going to be an Irish focused collective, or did it just sort of happen that way?
Yeah, like I had the name Class Craic, and I wanted it to be associated as being Irish, but not like it's Irish, you're not allowed in because you're not Irish. Like it's the description that I put out was like an Irish collective representing artists globally, because it's so sort of based here, but that doesn't mean that.
Yeah, it's sort of all encompassing, not closing any doors to any artists.
Yeah,
really,
exactly. It's sort of reminiscent, I think, of like Pro Era. I remember watching an interview with them, and they had, like, whenever they first started, they had producers from like all over Europe as well, and like I think as well because of the internet, like you don't have to live in the same place anymore. Like you could live all over the world and become a big collective.
Yeah, I think that's true. And like some of the people you're working with at the moment in Class Craic, like you only met Lacuna, for example, recently. Are you sort of working collectively on some bigger pieces, or is it just sort of getting to know each other and how each other work at this point?
Yeah, it's kind of a mixture of both, I suppose. Like at the moment, I've been putting out a single from each member every 3 weeks, so every Sunday, or every third Sunday, sorry, putting out a new single and just sort of building the image and the name. And then the beat tape that's going to be, it's sort of like a showcase of Irish producers, because I don't really feel there's a place for, like, you can't just look up Irish music, hip-hop producers and listen to all of them in one place, so I kind of wanted to do that.
Yeah, no, I think that's sick, because especially like with the podcast, me and you have talked so much before, we want to have like almost a spot that people can go to, and rather than having to search through the internet for, you know, all the individual people, you can come for like 30-40 minutes and get your rundown, your lowdown on what's going on in Irish hip-hop. So with the beat tape then, I guess that's kind of doing something similar in that you go to this beat tape and say you have 12 Irish producers on it, that's 12 people that you'd have to go to this one spot, you'll hear their output and you'll be able to search them after.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I think Mabfield's so great as well. Like there's, as you were saying, like I don't have much of a, like, trying to think of the word.
A base here almost.
Yeah, sort of like a base here, but like just listening to Mabfield and sort of like finding other artists and realizing that there's so much talent here that just needs to be given that platform, and I think that's why Mabfield's so great.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I think it's, yeah, like you said, it's having a platform, because there's people maybe that do have natural talent that maybe their current output isn't top notch, but just having a platform to give them the confidence almost to, if they're being talked about or people are being made aware of their stuff, you sort of think, well, maybe I can do something, or you're seeing your contemporaries doing things. I think it's super important to build like sort of a communal aspect of it as well.
Yeah, 100%.
And getting to know more Irish artists. Is there anyone that you've started listening to or want to work with that you've heard recently just throughout the aisle?
Yeah, there's like loads of people, to be honest. Like I'm never against, like I work with anyone as long as the like chemistry's there. But yeah, people in terms of like producers, you have like Jar Jar, Gaptooth. Actually, we've been speaking recently. He's going to be on that Class Craic tape. We were talking about. He sent me some house stuff he was working on.
Oh really?
Yeah, and I've been working on some house stuff recently as well. So we were chatting, and he asked if I wanted to make some like house sort of vibey stuff with him. So I think we're going to work on some stuff, which is cool. And then yeah, in terms of rappers, like there's loads of people like.
Couldn't even list them all.
Yeah, like exactly. Like you have Kojak, obviously. You have Jafaris. But yeah, there's just so many people that, I wouldn't be against working with any of them really.
I guess it's just sort of having that, like creating that awareness of who's existing in the scene, and like even you don't have to reach out and work with them straight away, but having that sort of like communal awareness that okay, this guy exists, and if the moment's right, then you can do something.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think as well you necessarily always have to work with somebody just because you both make music. Like you could just have like a mutual respect for them for doing their thing and you're doing your thing. Exactly. Because there's like people that I'm friends with that make music and make great music, but we've never actually worked on stuff, and it's just like people are doing their own thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that mutual respect thing is really important, because I think in sort of bigger communities where people are doing bigger things, it's easy to try and tear each other down, you know, but at the moment, because it is quite early days. Like, people are quite encouraging and wanting to help each other out at this point. I think it's important to try and keep that going as much as possible. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like live shows and things like that, it's something that we've talked about a lot that we want to do and try and encourage. But is that something that you want to sort of expand on with Class Craic in terms of getting that live experience for the different artists? And do you think that's going to be a bit complicated then?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because I'd love to do. There are plans for like a summer show that should be pretty cool, but ideally it would be like a regular occurrence. But because of the fact that it's trying to get 5 people from England, 6 people from Northern Ireland, and obviously people from Australia, like it's not very feasible. But yeah, sort of just building that reputation, especially with live shows. It's a very easy way to get your name out there locally. So
yeah, I think with live shows, because it's not so common, it's the only other way really is like internet-based promo, which is good to a point, but it's like people need to see it in the flesh a lot of the time, don't they? Because so many people that I didn't necessarily love their music I've seen recently, and they're really great live performers, and it just sort of endears you to them a bit more because songs just take on such a different energy live as well, especially, and you really get that impression that certain songs are made for live performances. And just to bring it back to Class Craic Records, is it something that you've got a larger vision going forward of how you want the sound to be? And is it just a collective of artists, or are you looking at it to be more, rather than just like collectively releasing stuff under that branded name almost? Are you looking to sort of expand it and for it to be more than just a group of individuals?
Yeah, definitely looking to expand it, but I think at the minute the main thing is just kind of getting the name out there and sort of artist development, I suppose, because there's so much talent, like especially in the rappers, like Lacuna, great rapper. Sort of just developing that, getting the name out there, and then from there expanding and seeing where it can grow.
And it's not like, it seems like there's quite a wide skill set within the collective. Like, it's not just music artists per se. It's, people have some other skills.
Yeah, we have like, it ranges from like radio presenters, a guy in Manchester who does radio shows, to people from Portrush who do like graphic design, and like Play, who's a great filmmaker. He released a short film yesterday. He makes music as well, but yeah, it's just a sort of trying to get like a vast set of like creative skills, I suppose.
Yeah, and you're not opposed obviously to like outside collaborations. It's not like a closed door sort of situation.
Nah, not at all. Like, I think at the minute it's kind of just easier because everyone's on the same wavelength and right, let's just get music out there. But nah, not at all. Like, if people want to work like with members in the collective, it would never be like a bad decision.
Yeah, and was this something that you always sort of hadn't done, like in the crosshairs, like from a younger age, almost with your experience in music, you wanted to do something beyond just your individual moniker? Almost you wanted to do something a bit bigger with other artists?
Definitely. I think as well in Northern Ireland, there's so much creative potential, but there's a lot of stuff stopping people. Like, there's so many people I speak to and they're really talented, but they're self-conscious of what they want to do because people have like put them down for it since school. But I think with the collective, one of the main things I want to do is just show people that if you want to do something, just fuck everyone else. Just do it. Just literally just do it.
And we were talking about before even that there's like almost like a vacuum where in other countries, they have like specific artists who are quite big now that they can look to and say, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And there's kind of a vacuum now in Northern Ireland because, I mean, the likes of Bareface, he's obviously pretty big and he's in Brockhampton, but I don't think most people even know he's from here. But it's like someone that's going to be outwardly from, Northern Ireland or Ireland that people can almost look to. And I think that like Class Craic as like a bigger collective, it's like, well, there's X amount of people in this. We can sort of replicate what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why whenever I chose the name Class Craic, a few people said to me like, don't limit yourself like that. They thought it was a bad name because it would limit it to Ireland. And I was saying like, I think it's better because it immediately draws people from Ireland to it. And yeah, sort of like brings them to it and just look at it and be like, oh, they're doing this, why can't I do it?
Yeah, because like I said, I think there's this massive like power vacuum almost, and it's where people go, okay, what's the hip hop scene in Northern Ireland? It's like people don't know who to look to, but if you become almost the face of it, the poster boys for that sort of thing, it's like it's brilliant branding because you're automatically associated with the country as a whole. Because I think that's like with Reggie Snow, it's like anybody who doesn't know that much about Irish hip hop, that's the first name that's going to come to, and they'll probably assume that's the only person there.
Exactly.
But like, even just being able to give a bigger platform to all these individuals. But I think there's some real natural chemistry. And like I heard a track by Lacuna and Sheephead, Rumours on the Pavements. Like that's insane. And from what I've seen, there's not a massive discography behind some of these artists, but the output is super strong already. You know, there's a real quality control going on. Is that something that you focus on a lot?
Yeah, I think the quality control kind of started in the submissions, like, because I chose specific people like that I knew were going to be good, that are already talented. I suppose it wasn't a case of making them do what I want them to do. It's just, you're good at what you do, just go and do it. And yeah, sort of just that creative freedom to do whatever they want.
And was there any other groups that inspired Class Craic? Was it like, I don't know, like the likes of Odd Future or something like that, or was it just something that made sense to you at the time?
I don't know, it's just always something I've wanted to do. I suppose, like, if you look at people like Brockhampton, the way they live in a house together and just made shitloads of music, like, watching that, especially like their documentary, it made me, I've always wanted to do it, but exactly that same thing of looking at that and you're just like, they're literally no different from any of us, and they've done it. And
yeah, I've watched the documentary that they put out, and you know, they filmed the whole way through, and it's just, that sort of stuff is super inspiring, that because it genuinely wasn't anything more than them all just fitting into this house, and there's music going on in every room in the house at any moment. And obviously they're talented, but like, talent's like a pursued interest. It's not something that you just have. I think it needs to be worked on, and if you've got that sort of work rate and you can put out 3 albums in a year, like, that's mad. That's what sort of put them on the map. And I think that being replicated on any sort of scale, maybe not even to that extent, can only be a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And sort of just creating like a safe space for like creative people to do what they want to do. Like, I have ideas to do like workshops or like back up in Portrush at some point in the future for that exact purpose, like maybe under the Class Craic name. Like, just a place where young people can go and there aren't going to be a bunch of people judging them.
Exactly.
Because there's so many times whenever you might start doing something like rapping, you're crap at it whenever you start, and people take the piss out of you for being crap, so you're like, oh, I'm never going to do this again. Whereas if you just keep doing it and realize that you are going to be bad, you just get better and better, and it gets to the point where people can't judge you. Well, they can judge you, but they can't take the piss because you're good at it.
Yeah. And do you think you ever had that problem earlier where you were sort of making beats and stuff and people are going, what are you doing? But then, like, now that you don't even need to respond, it's like the music talks for itself kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, definitely at school and stuff, like, there were people that would take the piss, especially with like the CBAKL name, like, say it like ironically. But I just didn't really pay attention to it and just kept going, because it was, I feel as well, if you're genuinely passionate about something, like for me it's music, that wasn't going to stop me, because I didn't do it just to be like popular or whatever. So whenever people do it, I was like, fuck you, like, I'm just going to keep going, like, I don't care.
And like, when I listen to your music especially, there's a couple of cuts that really reminded me of Knowledge, like some of the stuff he does, like that's someone I love listening to. And there's something, I think it's hard with sometimes with the instrumentals, sometimes the personality doesn't come through, but especially with your stuff and his stuff, like, you can almost, there's a real tone to it and a real feeling that you get from some of it, like, quite like, what's that song, sorry, called I Promise I Wouldn't Cry in the Club right now, like, you're actually in your feels when you listen to that, and there's and you know, it's not it hasn't got lyrics on it, but it's the tone and the way it's produced is really evocative, you know.
Yeah, I get quite a lot of good feedback from that song especially, but I think especially now that I'm making music like consistently, it gets to a point, like, it used to be I'd make stuff, not make stuff for quite a while, and I'd come back and be like, shit. Not that I've forgotten how to make music, but I'm not like in the groove of it, whereas now I just like open the DAW that I use and everything's like ready to go. Use like the same techniques, which means that the sound is sort of like cohesive throughout, as opposed to like even like stuff that I make that's like house oriented. I think you can still tell that it's like produced by me.
Yeah, like you sort of built this creative process over a time, and sort of, yeah, I think that's true, because there is like some inherent quality to a lot of your tracks that is very you, and when you listen to them all side by side, like they stand still, or they stand up well together. But I think that in terms of keeping, I think especially with being an instrumental producer, it's very easy for a lot of the stuff to get lost. But you manage to have a cohesive sound without it getting boring or repetitive. Like the likes of Kate Renata as well, especially. I always think back to him. He has some elements of a song, you know, that bounce and the same BPM in nearly every song, but it still fucking slaps every time, and it doesn't get repetitive. And is that something that took a long time for you, or was that just there from the start?
I think because originally I didn't really start like making music to just for rappers to rap over. I started making music because like I wanted to make it, so it wasn't like a lot of like especially original stuff that I made I'd send to rappers, and they're like said that it was good, but they're like I can't rap over this, like in terms of like the drum pattern or whatever. It was like too complex for like not too but like
difficult to flow over, basically.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
when you were talking about the likes of Brockhampton and artists and groups like that, who sort of is influencing your music at the moment? Because I'd be interested to hear what genres and stuff they're from, because I don't necessarily think you need to listen to hip-hop music whilst you're making hip-hop music, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I've listened to quite a lot of genres, like, my whole life, basically. Like, as I said, through sampling, I listened to, like, loads of jazz and soul and just, like, really weird, like, obscure stuff. Yeah. But then, like, recently I found a really good playlist on Spotify that's just called Ethnic House, and it's just, like, ethnic house music, and it's just class, like, and it's, like, I've been making not loads of house music, but like my latest single that's coming out in a few days is very, very house oriented, and I think it's just because I listen to quite a lot of stuff. Like
house is quite derivative of soul music at times as well, and it's I guess the wider interest you have, the more obvious it'll start to be in some of your music, and I guess like you're just diversifying your catalogue.
Yeah, also with house music, it sort of draws upon the same influences as hip-hop in the sense that a lot of it has samples, and as you said, like soul, and it has that like bounce to it.
Yeah, no, I'm really interested just in how the creative process works and things like that. And in the future, do you think you're going to stick to sort of the lines of being a producer and sort of the head honcho of Class Craic? Is there other things you want to diverge into? Maybe would you ever think about rapping or anything like that?
Yeah, it's been in the works for like quite a long time, but I suppose it's kind of hypocritical because I was saying to not, like you have to be shit, but I'm kind of at a point where I want it to be good before I release anything. I don't want to...
Well, I mean, you have to practice. You don't necessarily have to release it.
Yeah, that's right. Like, I've been practicing, but it's more so, practicing without putting the stuff out there. But yeah, it's definitely coming soon.
I suppose that's like... It's a bit of a natural transition when you make beats as well, you know, because ultimately you keep making these beats and then like you ultimately just have it in your head of how you want the song to sound and how you want a flow to go. So yeah, probably it's just going to be like you will master it at some point, and then you'll just start releasing beats and bangers.
Yeah, exactly. I find it ironic though, like whenever I listen to my own stuff, like if I ever want to like rap over something, I'd never use my own stuff. I don't know why. I think it's sort of like I just prefer to go like fresh into something rather than knowing. Because
I think it's difficult, especially when if you have an idea in your head and you try to translate it to someone else. It's like if you have a beat and you imagine how someone would go over it, you're not going to tell them how to do it, but you have a picture in your head of how you want it to go. But once you get to the point where you feel like, yeah, you know, I actually can rap over this, you'll be able to sort of translate your complete vision onto a total track, and I think that'll be really interesting.
One thing I'm sort of curious about in terms of like the sampling process is it just sort of on the fly? Like, would you just pick a random playlist, like listen to something, and then it sort of just trigger something in your head, like, ooh, this could be a nice like sample, this could be a nice hook for something, or like how does that sort of work?
Yeah, like it used to be like, because I'm at uni, I have loads of free time obviously, so I'd like play FIFA or like whatever, like play a PlayStation game and just go through like, because there's so many YouTube channels that just have thousands and thousands of songs like dedicated to crate digging, so I just put them on, play like FIFA career mode or something, and then whenever something sticks out to me, download it. And then recently, not so much like while I'm playing games or whatever, more immersed in the music itself, and then listening through the whole thing, trying to find something that I like, and then downloading it. But yeah, I have like, I think like hundreds of samples like on my computer that I just need to like find the time to make stuff with.
Yeah, I'm always like blown away by just the pure quantity of stuff that producers have on their computer. Like sometimes when people, you know, flip open their Mac or whatever and they show me just the library they've got, I'm just like, holy fuck, like how do you keep up with that? Is there a lot of stuff that you started maybe and then just never get around to using, then you move on to the next bit, and then do you come back to some of that stuff?
Yeah, definitely. Actually recently I went through like everything, because I got a Mac like not that long ago. It's not as bad.
Yeah.
Like I've been trying to like keep everything organized. But yeah, recently I went through and like tidied up everything and put them into like folders of finished beats and like stuff I'm working on. But yeah, like there's stuff that I think is weird, like as a producer, like anything that you do, sometimes you kind of forget that you haven't like released it yet. Like you're just sitting on stuff. Like I didn't realize there was about 40 beats I think that I'm just sitting on, and I'm like, I need to do something with these. So I started like sending them out to rappers recently.
Okay. And in terms of like, do you just scope out people that you think this would suit them well, or do you just get in touch and say, yo, I've got like a catalogue of stuff that I'd love to send you?
Yeah, it's kind of a mixture of both, like, especially because I'm in England, and Loudhouse, who I don't know if you're aware of, I did a video with them recently, like, they just get, like, all of the talented people in London, especially, because that's where they're based, but all around the UK, and do, like, freestyles with them. So that's, like, a gold mine for producers, because for anyone that wants to listen to good music, just go on there, but I found, like, so many people I've collaborated with through that. And yeah, like, there's a guy called Kibo he's from London, but he has family here in Ireland. So he's, like, over here quite a bit. But me and him are working on, I think we finished one album and then we have another one coming. So it's kind of just a case of, like, messaging somebody, being like, oh, I really like your music, they like it as well, and then you just get stuff working. And if they have a really good, like, if they're quite productive, it's very quick, because you can just, like, as a producer, you can just send them a pack of beats, and if they're productive, they can just send it straight back, like, whenever they're done, rather than, because there's been other times, like, whenever I first started producing, that I'd be waiting on, like, a rapper for, like, months, and, like, to release a project, because that was, like, my own, like, naivety of not realizing that I should just, like, leave that and move on. Yeah.
And in terms of, like, so then you're doing quite a lot of work. Like, you said that you were on that, what was the TV show called, sorry? Or the YouTube show called?
Loudhouse.
Loudhouse. So how did that come about? And is that something that you want to do more of, is to get your face out, get your face out there?
Yeah, like, it came about from a guy called Obi-Wan, who I'm pretty close with. Like, just working with people like that in England, and like meeting other producers, rappers, and then like get my name out there. And then they messaged me, I think like 2 summers ago, asking if I'd do a freestyle video for them of me using like my sampler. So I was back in Ireland, so I just got my friend to record me like playing it or whatever. So that like sort of built the relationship with them. And then I think it was October, I went down there for the first time. It was in London, a place called Mortlake. So yeah, I went there, and all the guys are like really nice. And yeah, they're same vision as me. Like, they just want to release,
easy and natural.
Yeah, they just want to release music with good artists, and that's all I want to do as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just working with people that you feel comfortable with and that you work well with, because I sort of feel like with anything, it's very easy now to send stuff across the internet and all that sort of thing, but there's nothing better than that sort of natural chemistry in person with someone, and I guess going to those sort of things sort of highlights that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's not something I do often, because there's a lot of, like, because I'm in Leicester, I'm not in London, and when I'm over here, well, now the scene's starting to grow, but it's like, I've never really been in a place where there's a lot of rappers or singers on hand to work with, so it's been, like, very much over the internet based, but there's just something so good about sitting down with a vocalist and just making stuff from scratch. Like, the chemistry is there. Like, I feel like a lot of people who work together, like rapper producer duos, you can tell that they're with each other all the time.
No, that's cool. And especially, like, I think it's almost taken for granted nowadays, because it's so easy to just send beats over the internet, and like, you talk about, CL Smooth and Pete Rock and all these sort of people that actually were physically together and had like really good combinations and chemistry. But yeah, I think that's something that's a bit underrated, and you seem to have a sort of good mix between the online presence with Class Craic and stuff like that, and then in person as well. So it's like live shows is really the next step, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's one of those as well. Like, with live shows, I don't want to play like lo-fi beats. Like, the sort of stuff that I want to play is like
higher energy almost.
Yeah, like recently I've been listening to a lot of like Turkish disco, and whenever you hear that, you're like, what? But Turkish disco is fucking amazing. Like, it's one of those, like, do you know whenever you're at a gig and it's just some random DJ like maybe like starting the show and they just play a song and you're just like, yeah.
Yeah, I remember I went to Run the Jewels show like a couple of months ago, and it was a guy, Gaslamp Killer, who actually turned out not to be such a good dude, but he played the wildest shit, like stuff I couldn't. You know when your brain can't even imagine what something would sound like. It was like is really house music or like it was all these crazy genres. I mean, he was playing it and he was doing it live with a lot of like analog stuff, and it was just crazy. And it's that kind of, I love hearing that sort of world music stuff that you're not used to hearing. It just opens up your palette to so many new sounds.
Exactly, because you could go into a DJ set and play like Skepta, but like I feel like as well, like back in the day whenever DJs were like the taste makers, like they play something and people would be like, what is this? And it's better to play stuff that people haven't heard, I think, a lot of the time, that you know will be good. I think that's why house is quite good, like Turkish disco and things like that, because it's
I mean, it'll all sort of tie back in if you're listening to that sort of stuff, and even just for creating a high energy show, I mean, that's going to influence the sound you're bringing out. And to be honest, like I'm dying to hear some Turkish influenced, you know, like house music with you playing the boron or whatever as well, you know, like something like that would be wild. But it's, again, it's just sort of those cross pollination of different genres and tastes. It really makes something sound crazy. I mean, I think that we can pretty much round it up there. We've got like an idea of like your different tastes, like Class Craic Records. Everybody go check that out. I'll leave all the links in the description. I'll leave a couple of links to your SoundCloud and stuff like that so people can check out for themselves what you're about. But I think that's pretty much all I want to say. Like, thanks for
No, not really. Thanks for having me. I think it's a great platform for Irish artists especially, and keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and it's something that I definitely want to do more now is get guests on, because just getting to hear, I don't think people want to hear from me as much anymore now. They want to hear from some of the people that I actually talk about, you know. So I'm super open to having guests on, so people get in touch if you're interested. We'll get back, keep sending in your music, and big thanks to CBAKL Keelan for coming on the show.